Why is it that you can want something so badly, a stronger body, a finished project, a better life, and still find yourself scrolling on your phone at midnight, wondering where the day went? You didn't plan to waste it. You never do. You wake up with intention, maybe even excitement, and somewhere between breakfast and bedtime, that intention quietly dissolves into distraction, procrastination, and a familiar wave of guilt. If this sounds like your life, I want you to know something important right now. This isn't a character flaw. It's not proof that you're lazy or weak-willed or somehow missing whatever gene-disciplined people were born with. What you're experiencing is one of the oldest human struggles there is, and more than 2,000 years ago, a group of philosophers studied this exact battle between intention and action with startling precision. They didn't have smartphones. They didn't have algorithms engineered to hijack their attention every 90 seconds. But they had something just as distracting: fear, ego, comfort, other people's opinions, the constant pull toward the easy path instead of the meaningful one. And through relentless observation of the human mind, they discovered principles so effective that emperors, slaves, generals, and everyday citizens all used the same philosophy to build extraordinary focus and unbreakable discipline. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what those principles are, why your focus keeps slipping through your fingers no matter how hard you try to grip it, and how to finally build the kind of mental discipline that doesn't depend on motivation, willpower, or waiting until you feel ready. Some of what you're about to hear will challenge how you've been thinking about productivity your entire life. Stay with me until the end, because the 10th principle is the one that ties every single lesson together, and it might be the missing piece you've been searching for without even realizing it. If you're tired of starting strong and losing steam, tired of watching your goals slip away while everyone else seems to have it figured out, take 1 second right now to like this video and subscribe. Every lesson on this channel is built to help people exactly like you become calmer, sharper, and mentally unshakable. You genuinely don't want to miss what's coming next. Let's be honest about something most people never say out loud. It's not that you don't know what you should be doing. You know you should be working on that goal instead of scrolling. You know you should be going to bed instead of watching one more episode. You know exactly what version of yourself you're trying to become. The gap isn't knowledge. The gap is execution, and that gap is where shame quietly grows. Every time you fail to follow through, something small breaks inside your self-trust. You start making promises to yourself that you don't quite believe anymore, because a part of you remembers all the other times you didn't keep them. This is exhausting in a way that's hard to explain to someone who hasn't lived it. It's not just about missing a workout or a deadline. It's about slowly losing faith in your own word. Here's what almost nobody tells you. This isn't happening because you lack discipline as a fixed trait. It's happening because you've been taught to rely on motivation, a feeling, to do something that was never meant to depend on feelings at all. Motivation is unreliable by nature. It shows up when conditions are convenient and disappears the moment things get difficult, boring, or uncomfortable. If your entire system for achieving your goals depends on an emotion that comes and goes like weather, of course you're going to feel inconsistent. Of course you're going to feel like you're failing. The Stoics understood something modern productivity culture completely missed. They didn't wait to feel like doing the hard thing. They built systems of thought that made action possible regardless of how they felt. This wasn't about suppressing emotion or forcing themselves through gritted teeth. It was about training the mind so thoroughly that discipline stopped requiring struggle and started becoming identity. That shift, from discipline as an act of willpower to discipline as a way of being, is what we're about to explore. And it starts with understanding exactly where this philosophy came from, and why it still works exactly the same way today. To understand why Stoicism works so well for focus and discipline, you have to understand the world it was born into. Ancient Rome and Greece were not calm, orderly places. They were chaotic, unpredictable, and often brutal. Political power shifted violently. Wars erupted without warning. Fortunes were made and lost overnight. In that kind of world, the ability to remain focused, steady, and disciplined wasn't a luxury. It was survival. Consider Marcus Aurelius, a man who spent nearly 2 decades as the most powerful person in the known world, ruling the Roman Empire while fighting wars on multiple fronts, managing a devastating plague, and enduring the deaths of several of his own children. He could have surrendered to despair. He could have numbed himself with the endless luxury available to an emperor. Instead, nearly every night, he sat down and wrote private reflections to himself, not for an audience, not for legacy, but purely to train his own mind. Those writings eventually became known as meditations, and they remain one of the most powerful records of self-discipline ever produced, precisely because they weren't written to impress anyone. They were written by a man fighting every single day to master himself before trying to master anything else. Then there was Epictetus, born into slavery, who endured physical hardship most of us will never comprehend. He eventually gained his freedom and became one of the most influential teachers in the ancient world, and his central teaching was radically simple. Focus entirely on what is within your control and release everything else completely. Not partially. Completely. And Seneca, a statesman and advisor who experienced extraordinary wealth and devastating exile in the same lifetime, wrote extensively about how people waste their most valuable resource, time, chasing distractions while telling themselves they'll get serious later. He warned that people are careful with their money but careless with their days, as if time were something that would never run out. These 3 men lived wildly different lives, yet they arrived at the same conclusion through different paths. Discipline and focus were never about external circumstances being perfect. They were about training an internal system so strong that circumstances stopped being able to derail it. That system is what we're about to break down, piece by piece, starting with the principle that changes everything else. Every single Stoic teaching begins here, because without this foundation, nothing else works. The dichotomy of control means dividing everything in your life into 2 categories. What is within your power, and what is not. Your judgments, your effort, your reactions, your daily choices, these are yours completely. The economy, other people's opinions, the outcome of your work, the past, these were never yours to control, no matter how much energy you pour into them. Most people unknowingly spend the majority of their mental energy fighting battles in the second category. They obsess over what a coworker thinks of them, replay an argument they can't undo, worry about an outcome that hasn't happened yet and might never happen at all. This constant tug of war with the uncontrollable is exhausting, and worse, it leaves almost nothing left over for the one category that actually determines your life. Your own actions. Picture 2 people facing the exact same setback, a rejected proposal, a missed opportunity. One spends the next 3 days replaying it, imagining what they should have said, resenting the person who rejected them. The other acknowledges the disappointment, extracts whatever lesson is useful, and redirects that same energy into the next attempt. The difference between these 2 people isn't talent or luck. It's where they chose to place their focus. This is a daily practice, not a one-time realization. Every time you feel your attention drifting towards something outside your control, gently redirect it with a simple question. Is this something I can act on right now? If yes, act. If no, release it completely and return your focus to what remains yours. Here's something that will probably surprise you. The Stoics never talk about discipline as a single dramatic decision. They talk about it as thousands of small, unremarkable choices repeated consistently, day after day, long after the initial excitement fades. This matters because most people quit not during the hardest moment, but during the most boring one. The first week of a new habit feels exciting. The fifth week feels like nothing is happening. That's exactly when most people give up, right before consistency would have started compounding into visible results. The Stoics understood that character isn't built in dramatic moments. It's built in the unremarkable, repeated choice to do the difficult thing anyway, especially when no one is watching and nothing feels urgent. Think about the discipline required to write a private journal every night for years, as Marcus Aurelius did, with no audience and no external reward. That's not motivation. That's identity, the quiet decision that this is simply who you are, regardless of how you feel on any given day. Practically, this means lowering the bar for what counts as showing up. You don't need a perfect 2-hour session of deep focus every single day. You need 5 minutes of showing up on the hardest days, because those small acts of consistency are what rebuild your trust in yourself. Discipline isn't about intensity. It's about frequency. One of the most common reasons people abandon their goals is that the moment something becomes uncomfortable, they interpret that discomfort as a signal to stop. The Stoics flipped this completely. They viewed discomfort not as a warning sign, but as the exact terrain where growth happens. Seneca compared this to physical training. Muscles only grow when they're pushed slightly beyond their current capacity, and that process is, by definition, uncomfortable. The mind works the same way. Every time you push through boredom, resistance, or difficulty instead of escaping it, you're not just completing a task, you're expanding your actual capacity for future discipline. This reframing changes how discomfort feels. Instead of, "This is too hard, I should stop," it becomes, "This is exactly what strengthening feels like." That single shift in interpretation is often the difference between someone who quits at the first sign of difficulty and someone who pushes through it and comes out the other side transformed. Seneca warned that people guard their possessions carefully but let their time be stolen by anyone who asks for it, as if there were an endless supply. In a world of infinite notifications, endless content, and constant demands on your attention, this warning has never been more relevant. Every time you allow your attention to be pulled towards something that doesn't align with who you're trying to become, you're spending a resource you can never get back. The Stoics treated their attention with the same seriousness most people reserve for their finances, deliberately, protectively, and with clear boundaries about where it was allowed to go. This means becoming ruthlessly honest about what's consuming your focus. Not to eliminate all rest or enjoyment, but to stop letting your attention be hijacked by default instead of directed by choice. The Stoics placed enormous importance on the small gap between something happening and how you respond to it. In that gap lies your entire freedom. React impulsively, and you hand control of your emotional state to whatever just happened. Pause, even for a few seconds, and you reclaim the power to choose a response aligned with the person you actually want to be. This single habit, pausing before reacting, is one of the most underrated tools for both focus and discipline, because impulsive reactions are often what derail an otherwise productive day. A frustrating email, a harsh comment, an unexpected setback, react without thinking, and suddenly your entire focus for the day is gone, hijacked by something that will be irrelevant in a week. I want to hear from you, honestly. Which of these principles hit closest to home for you? struggling to release what you can't control, losing momentum right when things get boring, or letting your attention get hijacked by things that don't actually matter. Share your experience in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today to feel a little less alone in this struggle. And if this video is giving you value so far, take a moment to like it. It genuinely helps this message reach more people who need it. Understanding these principles intellectually is only the beginning. The real transformation happens in how you apply them, starting today, in small and specific ways. Begin each morning by identifying just one thing within your control that you'll focus on, rather than a sprawling list of tasks that overwhelms you before you even start. This single point of focus becomes your anchor when distractions inevitably arise throughout the day. When you notice yourself procrastinating, resist the urge to wait for motivation to return. Instead, commit to just 5 minutes of the task. Almost every time, the hardest part is the beginning, and once you're in motion, continuing becomes far easier than starting did. Create a brief pause before reacting to anything frustrating, a message, a comment, an unexpected obstacle. Even 3 seconds of intentional breathing before responding can prevent an impulsive reaction from derailing your entire focus for the day. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to reflect honestly, the way Marcus Aurelius did in his private writings. Ask yourself what you handled well, what pulled your focus away, and what you'll do differently tomorrow. This isn't about self-criticism. It's about staying honestly connected to your own growth. The most common mistake people make when trying to build discipline is expecting immediate, dramatic transformation. Real change from these principles is often invisible day to day and only becomes obvious in hindsight, weeks or months later, when you realize you've become someone who follows through, someone whose word to themselves actually means something again. Imagine what your life looks like 6 months from now if you consistently practiced even 3 of these principles. Imagine waking up without the familiar dread of another day spent reacting instead of choosing. Imagine trusting yourself again. That version of you isn't a fantasy. It's built one disciplined choice at a time, starting exactly where you are right now. Every principle we've explored today points back to the same fundamental truth. Your focus and your discipline were never about willpower alone. They were about training your mind to operate from clarity instead of impulse, from identity instead of motivation, from what you can actually control instead of everything you can't. The dichotomy of control frees you from battles you were never meant to fight. Small, repeated action builds the kind of discipline that doesn't collapse the moment excitement fades. Treating discomfort as information instead of a warning sign keeps you moving forward exactly when most people quit. Protecting your attention preserves the one resource that determines everything else you build. And the simple habit of pausing before reacting gives you back control in moments that used to control you. None of this requires perfection. The Stoics themselves weren't perfect. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself precisely because he was still struggling, still training, still human. What separated them wasn't the absence of difficulty. It was the consistent, deliberate choice to keep showing up for their own growth, one ordinary day at a time. You don't need to overhaul your entire life tonight. You need to make one disciplined choice today, and then another tomorrow, and let those choices slowly become who you are. That's how an unshakable mind is actually built. Not in a single dramatic moment, but in the quiet accumulation of 1,000 small decisions to master yourself before trying to master anything else. That mastery is available to you starting right now, in this very moment, with whatever you choose to do next. Thank you sincerely for staying with me through this entire video. If these Stoic principles gave you even a moment of clarity or motivation, Subscribe so you don't miss the lessons still to come. If you know someone who's been struggling to stay focused or disciplined lately, send this video their way. It might be exactly the reminder they need today. And before you go, check out the next recommended video to keep building the kind of mental strength that doesn't waver under pressure. Stay disciplined, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next one.